are you? D Square here, and like I mentioned in my review for X-Men #1, enjoy the variant cover. Um, we're going to go ahead and we're going to dive into some spoilers here. But definitely, spoilers alert, all up in here. So, if you haven't purchased this book yet, make sure and go and check out my review to see that and then decide if you want to go pick it up. Then go pick it up and then come right back here. Or just stay right. I'm cool with whatever. But either way, we're going to be diving into this book here. I just want to take you through what we've learned in this issue. The first thing that we see is really nothing like blackness, and we quickly learn that it's Cyclops who doesn't want to open his eyes because he's going to hurt people, and we see the scene of the first scene between him and Xavier when Xavier gives him the ruby glasses and Cyclops is finally able to see again without hurting anyone. So really cool scene there. And then the next thing we see is the X-Men have found the last stronghold of Orchis on Earth. So a team of X-Men, of course, led by Cyclops, Storm, Magneto, they go to this facility and they, of course, cannot be stopped whatsoever. And they end up finding these vats with living mutants in them. So they've just, rescued a bunch of mutants from this Orchis facility that was continued to be experimented on. And they also find a very strange looking, what we learn is like one of the very first, post-humanity working toward that Homo, Nosivima that we learned about in the Powers of 10. So she gets away. She kind of teleports through the floor, but that's what they surmise, that this is some sort of, because it wasn't mutant. It would definitely looked like a modified human, one of the very first post-humanity beings. But that's it. She kind of melts through the floor, teleports, whatever you want to call it. And there you go. They return back to Krakoa as heroes with these new mutants that they had just saved, and they're hailed as heroes by the general populace of Krakoa. But specifically, Magneto is the superstar. Magneto is the one that all the children flock to. And there's this interesting scene here. This new Game of Thrones era of X-Men. If you're been on the channel, I'm mentioning it as very Game of Thronesy to me. And this next scene kind of shows me that we're definitely getting there, because Cyclops and Polaris kind of have a moment. Doesn't look like anything conclusive, like they're intimate or anything, because you'd expect Cyclops and Jean Grey to be together. But I don't know. There's a strange scene there. They're looking at Magneto and commenting on how much he's enjoying this and how deserved it is for him. So definitely interesting scene there as well. Could Cyclops and Polaris be developing some sort of relationship? Then we go back to the Orchis Forge, where the Mother Mold had been stationed, the place where the X-Men had assaulted, fought, and all died to destroy the Mother Mold. So that facility is still up and running. It's still the basic, the base of operations for Orchis. And we learn that the main scientist of the place, Dr. Gregor, was not the main scientist. We get introduced to this old guy. He's got these glasses on because we learn that he's blind, but through technology he can see infrared and ultraviolet and all that stuff. He's got all sorts of robotic appendages. So he was the main guy here, and he conveniently was not here during that assault. But him and Omega Sentinel were really the ones working together. So Omega Sentinel is definitely still in the mix with Orchis. So that's definitely going to be something that we're going to have to keep an eye on. And they show an interesting ceremony where they're having a funeral for all the people that died during that attack. But definitely some ominous stuff there with seeing that, that prototype Homo Novissimo, seeing that Orchis is, still operating on the Orchis Forge that is orbiting the moon. So definitely foreshadowing some things to come, I'm sure. Then the next thing we see is the summer house. This is a Krakoan, one of the Krakoan habitats. It is where Cyclops has chosen to live, which kind of makes sense because, Corsair, Cyclops' father, and the Starjammers, they all kind of come to visit. And they're not mutants. So they mention how Cyclops here has some questionable, but ultimately allowable company here. But nonetheless, he's living in this Krakoan habitat on the blue side of the moon. It's called the Summers House. We've got all the Summers there. We've got Jean Grey. We've got Cable. We've got Rachel. Wolverine is there for some reason, but okay, makes sense. I mean, they're definitely close. And we get a lot of detail here. We get like a hand-drawn map. Hickman's continuing with those data sheets. So we get that hand-drawn map. And we get a diagram that shows everybody's room. And so going back to the kind of Polaris and Cyclops scene there, and what adds further intrigue to that, is that in the summer house, Jean Grey and Scott Summers don't share a room. In fact, Jean Grey is in between Cyclops and Wolverine's rooms. So, yeah, soap opera much? Game of Thrones for sure. This is the new era of X-Men. Get used to it. I mean, X-Men has always had a lot of drama and soap opera elements to it, and looks like Hickman is continuing on with that tradition, and I'm definitely okay with it. I'm just, I'm still kind of confused. What is the relationship between Jean Grey and Scott Summers? Cable's there with him, kind of acting like a kid. Hey, Dad, I asked Mom. She said to ask you. So Jean Grey and Scott Summers, clearly have this kid. Vulcan is there as well, and he acts very strange, which, he says is because he didn't have a proper male influence. So, hey, way to rub it in there, the Corsair. He's not Father of the Year for sure, but, you don't have to say it right in front of the guy's face. But either way, so we see the Summers house and, how that works, and it adds a little bit more intrigue. And, okay, what's the romantic relationships here? People that were once together don't seem to exactly be together. So we'll definitely stay tuned, and we will find out. And then the last thing is we catch back up with Orchis and Gregor, Dr. Gregor, the doctor that survived the mutant attack on the Orchis Forge back in House of X. We see where her and this main doctor of the facility are lamenting the death of her lover, and of course the general of their forces, the guy that destroyed himself back in Powers of X and House of X to kill the mutants as they landed on the Orchis Forge. So they're lamenting that death because not only was he the lover of Dr. Gregor, but he was their best military mind. So it really, really was a horrible, horrible loss. But we see that Dr. Gregor is working on something. She shows us this crystal, and then states that, well, you know what? They're going to be able to bring him back. And that's where this sucker ends. So definitely a great setup. I mean, obviously the mutants, the X-Men, and Orchis are going to continue to have these salvos. What happened to that, prototype Homo Novissima, or, post-humanity human that they found when they found the rest of the mutants, in that Orchis facility's basement? So a lot of questions. But one thing that was answered, by the way, and I did omit this, so let me add it in now, is, like I said, Magneto went with Cyclops and Storm and the others to this Orchis facility on Earth, okay? He had to take an order from Cyclops. Magneto wanted to go after, these people that had ran, but Cyclops just wanted to focus on getting the mutants out of there and getting home. And they didn't really butt heads because Cyclops just said, hey, this is what it is, and boom, that's exactly what they did. So I know that when me and my brother had, talking amongst each other, we always wondered, did that Captain Commander, which is Cyclops, ultimate authority on the field, if somebody that is part of the Krakoan Silent Council or Quiet Council, if they're on the battlefield, does his authority overtake theirs? And indeed it does. So very, very interesting there. Well, I hope you're liking the content here on the channel. Again, we're doing reviews. We're going to be talking spoilers. Of course, Volsker and I get together and talk about all sorts of geeky stuff. So hope you're enjoying that. If you made it this far in the video, guys, please like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. And certainly any shares on social media, I am ultimately grateful for. Thank you so much, everyone. Peace and love. And we'll see you again soon.